through this study on prayer. I'm sure some of the things that we've introduced to you might have been a little strange, but our prayer is that God has touched you, challenged you, and blessed you to be able to comprehend some of what we've been talking about. And so we're grateful. I keep hearing that pinging. Is that you? And you got sexy on the top of your hat and your phone making noise. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it's gonna be one of them nights. I feel it in my spirit right now. Who said who else? Oh, Jesus, we got two sexy hats in here tonight. And they glittering and glowing. Did I miss the text message or something? Did I? No, there ain't no need in doing that now. We done seen it now. Go on and pull it out. You done told everybody you sexy tonight. So you just go. Don't say nothing else because I'll be done saying something crazy. And we live right now. No, everything done change. All the holiness done come out now that we live. Okay. My prayer is that God has challenged you in the midst of what we've been talking about. We talked about Nehemiah. That's who we've been dealing with. And as you saw, we see that, first of all, in the midst of where Nehemiah is, we see that he was favored by God. That was the first thing. We also see that he was clearly called by God. This is so overwhelmingly important for us to grasp as we continue to move forward in what God would have us to be. But in the midst of that, and I'm not really sure where I left off at, so I'm just going to start where I got to start. We also need to see that he was richly blessed. In the midst of all that Nehemiah was dealing with, it was God that gave him favor because when he heard of the condition of the walls of Jerusalem, it pricked his heart. And I need us to really get this. And if you don't get anything else, get this. It's really difficult. I'm, how can we sit back and be satisfied with the depravity of mankind and it not have any effect on us whatsoever? We're almost like the guy on the road and he got beat up and the priest went on the other side and we always looking for somebody else to do something rather than us engaging in things. And so when Nehemiah heard of the condition of the walls, he was pricked. His conscience was seared to the point that even though he's in exile, God had given him favor. And that's where I try to get people to understand, for whatever reason, we believe that we need some different position to prosper. And what we don't understand is we ought to be able to prosper right where we are, so that the lives of people we touch are impacted where we are. I mean, somebody got to be prosperous in jail. Somebody has, because somebody's got to get that message out. And so we see that he's blessed when he came before the king, and his countenance was down. He was bent out of shape due to the fact that he had heard what had taken place to the walls in Jerusalem. It impacted his relationship with Artaxerxes, who was the king, and the king said, well, tell me what you want. And that's a powerful thing. And I need people to understand that you don't have to have the money. It does not have to be in your account. But what God will send somebody who has the revenue you need to get God's work done. Y'all missed that. Let me just press on, okay? And so we see here that there's a twofold situation that's going on here. When he heard of the walls being in shambles, it also was a reflection of the mentality of the people. Because remember, I told you last week, these walls represented their security, their self-worth, their self-esteem. And with those walls being destroyed, they no longer had any motivation to live or to prosper or to do anything. And so it was Nehemiah's job to come into the midst of a rubble situation, in the midst of walls that had been burnt and destroyed, and to motivate a people who have no motivation. Catch where I'm coming from. Absolutely no motivation whatsoever to be motivated. For the Bible says in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 7, he told the people, he called them because in the midst of that, they see the distress of the walls of Jerusalem, but yet still he lets them know it's time to rebuild. Now, you have to look at this to understand this very clearly, because he says we need to rise up and build, which means I have to remove myself from the seat of complacency. And you got to think about that for just a moment. It's very easy to become complacent. It's very easy for you to say, well, I'm talking about like Youngstown. Everybody's hyped up on the new mayor, and that's great. But unless there's some people who are motivated by him, yeah, okay, y'all not. I wish somebody would catch this, because we ain't won no battle. We just won an election. Y'all ain't ready for this. We just won an election. The battle is yet to come. And the battle hasn't even started yet, because they haven't been sworn in. But the second they are, is when the battle is going to begin. And it makes me work, because I'm going to deal with some stuff, because in the midst of all that's going on, you also got to be able to know how to handle opposition. And the problem is, many of us poop out when opposition show up, instead of us understanding that the opposition is designed to strengthen you. Some of us can't handle that. Yeah. I used to be one of them. I'd pray, Lord, please remove this, remove that person, get them out of my face. And they don't move. They don't go nowhere. Matter of fact, they bring friends with them. And the reason that happens, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, I need us to understand that the reason that the people listened to Nehemiah is because he was inspired by the Holy Spirit to encourage them. See, that's something I think some of us need to recognize. You can't encourage people just because you want to encourage people. You encourage people because you have a divine mandate in your spirit. And when that divine mandate is in your spirit, it motivates others who are dead and docile to situations to say, well, shoot, if he's enthusiastic about it, I need to be as well. And so we see this very clearly, that God had given him the vision, and in the midst of getting the vision, God had also given him everything he needed to accomplish it. But I always need you to understand that every time you begin to move forward, every time you get ready to do what God would have you to do, there will be somebody from somewhere who will try to do everything in their power to keep it from coming to pass. There are people who benefit from desolation. And I'm going to make this a little more relevant to Youngstown. There are people who benefit from us being poor and destitute and bent out of shape. There are people, I'm watching even what's going on in our nation. There are people, I was watching, and I'm not going to mention no names or nothing like this, but I was watching The Session. Please don't be slow tonight. But I was watching The Session, and I was amazed at how many times he can't remember. And you're a lawyer. I didn't mention no names, did I? Minister Sean, did I mention any names? Okay. Because see, somebody gonna go out of here and say he was not. I didn't say that. I said I watched The Session. Y'all can't handle me tonight. I'm wound up tonight. And so in the midst of that, can't remember this, can't, and then all of a sudden some challenges came for, well, how many African Americans, how many minorities are, well, I had one in Alabama. I guess I just told on myself, didn't I? And so I'm looking at all of this, and I'm looking at the oppressive nature that was cultivated by one person. Because you see, if you can get the head corrupt, it corrupts the rest of the body. See, y'all not ready. So in the midst of this, we see quite clearly that in the midst of this, not only is opposition coming from his enemies, but some of it's going to come from his friends. Y'all can sit up here. Y'all can sit up here and act like y'all don't know where I'm coming from. When you begin to share what the Lord is going to do in your life, and all of a sudden your friends become your worst haters. I know none of y'all have ever been there. None of y'all have ever been through that. You've never shared stuff with. I tell you this story all the time. When I got ready to leave Goodyear to go into full-time ministry, it was amazing the things that African Americans said to me. You done lost your mind. You crazy. You gonna leave a good job to go do that. And it was funny that the other culture was like, man, I'm proud of you. And it should have been, are y'all catching where I'm coming from? Some of the people that I had worked with, that I had bailed out, that I had helped, were the main ones that approached me and said, you need to rethink that. And so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at that tonight. We're going to look at the fact that whenever God, and see, this lesson is not for the folk that ain't doing nothing. Oh, that's right. I forgot to look to see who's watching. Y'all give me just a second. I got so caught up in making sure that I did this. Plus, I got the folk. Good evening. Good evening. Yes. Good evening, Faye. Good evening, Angie. Yeah. Good evening. Yeah, Bridget. Amen. Glory to God. I thought Bridget was here. Okay. Bless his name. Okay. And so I need to go to this other page so that I can make sure that I can see everybody, because people be telling me that they watching and they watching TV and other stuff. They ain't watching nothing. And so I like to check. There we go. There's everybody else. Bless the Lord. And so in the midst of this, what we find that's so amazing is that when Nehemiah begins to motivate the people in a desolate situation, opposition comes. Okay, the enemies were Persian overlords who saw him as a threat to their position. That was the problem, because you got to remember, whenever God exalts you to a position that other folk feel they should have had. Ooh, I know y'all can't handle this. Whenever God promotes you to something that they feel they deserve, and you're not qualified to be there, but God places you there, those haters rise up. And so they get together and they joined up with the Samaritan leaders, and they were afraid that the unity of the Jews were going to cause them to lose their position. Because you got to remember, Nehemiah is a charismatic brother. Nobody's going to follow somebody that looks like they did. You got to have some level of enthusiasm to what you do. And so Nehemiah is anointed by God, by the power of the Holy Ghost, to turn around and do some things. And they upset with his charisma. They're upset with his leadership. And they are also upset with the response of the people to what he tells them they can do, even though they've never done it. That's an important thing, because, see, a real anointed leader can move people in directions they ain't never went in before. Did y'all catch that? Now, somebody might say, well, I'm not a leader. Now, let's define leader. Just because you ain't got 5,000 folk following you doesn't mean that you're not a leader. There ought to be some people who are motivated by your presence. Just lost y'all. If it's on your job, if it's in your neighborhood, even if it's in your family. See, we got this big, broad picture of what leaders are, and there's supposed to be this multiplicity of people following them. And what you fail to understand is that leadership means that you are motivating people who have lost hope, who have lost ambition, and you have told them, if you just trust me, I'll get you there. Okay, I ain't got no leaders in here. Okay. And so this is the thing that you got to remember, okay? And so the people were responding. They began the building process. And then here's what happens. They began to laugh at them. And the laughter of the process begins to get into the ear of people. Ain't nothing worse than you doing God's will and everybody laughing at you. That's what they did to me when I left Goodyear. They was laughing at me. Y'all can't handle that. They was laughing, talking about, look at that fool turning around here, going to walk away from that job and go work full time for the Lord. Okay. I was talking to a gentleman today who told me that he had did the very same thing, and I said, "Oh, it's good that somebody else is willing." I got another one of the pastor friends. Okay, you're watching. Okay, D. Okay, D. Okay. D wants to make sure I know that she's watching. In fact, she can put the scripture in it to make sure I knew it was her tonight. That's what I call that's that. And so in the midst of this, they began to rebuild the walls and they began to scorn and laugh them and in the midst of laughing, it didn't stop anything because they even though they were in their ear, they had their eye on somebody. Now the funny thing about Nehemiah that I find so amazing that many times comes up lacking in some leaders is some leaders don't want to get into the trenches with the people doing the work because they'd rather sit back on a seat of grandeur or a seat of prominence while everybody else is doing the work. That's not Nehemiah. Nehemiah is a hands-on leader. Nehemiah is the kind of leader that he'll get down in there and do whatever needs to be done because you got to remember, you can't get people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. Okay. I remember Deacon Harmon, and I remember very clearly when they were pouring the footers for this building right here. He and I helped them pour concrete. No, you didn't hear what I said. Now everybody don't need it. Everybody didn't really need to be down there in there because they made a mess out of everything. But we got down in there, and people talking about, man, I don't know why you did that. I said, I don't know why you didn't. You can't turn around and motivate people to do something you too trifling that you won't do it yourself. Ooh, I just lost somebody right there. Okay? And so here's what you've got to remember. Okay? There's a power struggle coming. There's a power struggle coming because their negative criticism is an open hostility toward the move of God. That's why I try to tell people, quit getting bent out of shape when folk get mad at you because you're doing what God would have you to do. Why in the world you sit up here whining and crying and acting all snivelly and all that kind of stuff? It's supposed to happen. You think the enemy is going to sit back and let you accomplish the will of God and you turn around and every day is just a good day? No, there's going to be some rough days. There's going to be some times when you're going to feel like giving up. But here's what happened. Here's what happened. This is amazing thing that took place because as the parts of the wall began to be put back together, the more the hostility grew. See, folk ain't really going to threaten you when you just at the foundational stage. Have you ever seen somebody start something and don't finish it? Okay? And so in the, oh God, what was his name? Built the thing out in Cuyahoga Falls, never completed it. Not Ernest Ainsley, he bought it after that. This guy had a multi-million-dollar ministry. Rex Humbard. Rex Humbard went out there and he was going to build this thing and going to be a restaurant on top and it's going to turn around so everybody could see whatever they wanted to see because there wasn't much to see. Okay. And got it up so far and ran out of money. To this day. And that's been 20-some years ago. To this day, this tower is sitting up there incomplete. Now, what do you think they pay attention to? It don't matter what Rex Humbard had said. They see an incomplete tower. And so in the midst of all of this is what, ain't nobody bothering you until you get closer to completion. And so we see here very clearly that the work proceeded and they persevered. And the reason they persevered is because they had strong prayer lives. See, the reason that many of us can't accomplish anything is because we haven't prayed. We're not praying our way through it. We may pray to start it, but we don't pray to complete it. And what we fail to understand is if God started it, it should be completed. Nothing drives me crazier than people saying God done told them to do something and they don't complete it. Which tells me God was never in it. Why would God have you motivate people to do things and then you drop out? What if Nehemiah had dropped out? So in the midst of this, we see very clearly that the enemies became hostile and they were deliberate in making sure that Nehemiah would stop. So guess what they started doing? Rumors. They started spreading rumors. Y'all know how folk do when they get a good juicy one going. Yeah, okay. Y'all try. Y'all. The Lord is working, and all of a sudden, something stupid gets out. Girl, I heard such and such and such and such. Now you ain't got no validity. You don't have no proof. And then what happens is your vantage point on looking at that person has changed, not because of what you see, but because of what you heard. So they continue with the rumors, but guess what? It could not stop him. And the reason it could, see, that's why some folk I don't pay no attention to. Y'all didn't catch what I said. When some folk walk up to me, I don't hear a word they say. Now, some of y'all probably going, is it me? I don't pay any attention to them whatsoever. And the reason I don't is because they got a horrible track record. And the only thing they want to do is keep me from doing what God would have me to do. Y'all can't handle that. See, some of y'all think that's rude. No, it's not rude. It's because I'm determined. I'm determined to not allow anybody to separate me from the work that God has called me to do. So, in the midst of this, they tried to cripple him, they tried to assassinate his character, they did all of these things to them. And in the midst of all of that, they wanted him to give up. But guess what he did? Guess what he did? Guess what he did? And when he continued to work, guess what happened to the work? It continued, all right? So what are we looking at here? So we see very clearly that many times church leaders are discouraged, often because people don't take them seriously, or moment by moment, it seems to be sapping all of the strength out of them. You got to remember something. When you are a real leader and folk give you the blues, but you know what, LMA? It took me a while to catch that. And here's what I've learned about church folk. Look at somebody say, church folk. Here's what I've learned about church folk. If they're jealous of you, if they're jealous of you, they will do everything they can to keep you from being what they wish they were. No, y'all missed what I said. I know a jealous church person as soon as they walk through the door. Did y'all catch that? Because they hating on you because God using you and not them. Let me come. Can I press on? Are you sure? Okay. So in the midst of this, we see quite clearly that they tried to cripple him. They tried to do everything they could. And the first person they go after is the leader. Haven't you ever said to yourself, why in the world am I doing this? The people who were with me ain't there no more. The people who were encouraging me aren't doing anything anymore. And can I tell you, he says something here. Y'all ready for this? The very people the Lord has asked you to help don't want you or the task he has given to you to get done. Y'all missed that. The very people you're trying to help don't want it. Here's what I'm talking about. Now you got Sam Balatobat, you got all of these people talking trash, and then all of a sudden the trash comes out the camp. I need to press on. Because David said nobody can jack you up except folk that's close to you. Nobody else can detour. They can't stop, but they can slow it down to a point that it's just at a crawl, like people you done rolled with. Because see, those are the people who think they have your ear. I tell people this all the time, especially when folk use my name. I know Pastor Harrison. That's just like me saying I knew Dr. King. Y'all catching what I'm saying? Half these folk I don't even know. But they throw my name around like it's some name, oh, you know him? I ain't got no clout. I don't have no clout. All I got is servanthood. Did you catch that? When you're faithful over a few, he'll make you rule over many. But if you ain't been faithful over nothing, you ain't going nowhere. He that hath begun a good work in you will complete it. But if his work is not in you, you will never accomplish anything. I lost some of y'all right there. These people begin to hate on him. And all of a sudden, in the midst of all that's going on, they try to cause him to stop. Let me go to the next thing. Number 4, he's a man greatly admired. He's greatly admired, okay? The fourth thing that we see is he is a dynamic leader. He's greatly admired. The people trust him because of his prayer-saturated vision that they could finish the rebuilding. People long to rise to the finest, people long to rise to the finest we dare to picture they can be. When we communicate, we are for them and not against them. They will give their utmost. Did y'all catch that? Here's the thing that was so amazing. The Lord gave it to Nehemiah. Nehemiah did not administrate the building of the project aloof or some kind of dictator in an office. Rather, he was involved with the labor. That is so important. You look out throughout the Bible, you'll find many times where they look to the leader. And if the leader is absent, the work don't get done. Okay? And so what we see here quite clearly, Nehemiah ain't afraid to get dirty. He ain't afraid to lay a brick. He's not afraid. And because of that, they admire him. And when they admire him, they follow him. Now, here's what you got to remember. The more they follow him, the less they follow in somebody else. Which means the ones that used to be aren't anymore. And so there's jealousy. I'm back at it again. You got to remember, all of these Sanballat, Tobiah, they were somebody till Nehemiah showed up. Ain't nothing worse in the lives of church folk that thought they was in charge of something until the right person in charge showed up. Y'all missed that. And so when the right person shows up, what happened? What? And you know what I've learned about doing the will of God? You can be doing stuff, and it might not be the will of God. It just might be doing something. And so what are we looking at here? We see quite clearly that in this picture, he communicates to them. And in the midst of communicating to them, he requires work of them that he himself does as well. He labors with them. Nehemiah directed the work and depended upon the follow-through of others. But all the people could see and feel the impact of his leadership in order that might finish the task. That's why he could not flee to the temple. There was this guy who faked being sick. It's in the see, nobody pays attention to that. He faked being sick so that Nehemiah would come visit him. But what Nehemiah didn't know, he was in the other camp. Ooh, can I teach this like I feel it? That's why a lot of time I don't talk to folk because they might be in the other camp. Cora, you can't always tell everybody what God told you. Because if they have not aligned themselves with the vision, that means they've aligned themselves against the vision. Y'all didn't catch that. That's right. Go on and clap. I needed somebody to clap. Okay. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? If you ain't for it, then you're against it. And he faked being sick. And when, because the word had gotten out, we're going to kill Nehemiah. And so he goes to see this faker. And the faker says to him, come off the wall, run to the temple, close the door, and save your life. Oh, y'all didn't catch. And this jump took place almost at the point of the completion of the wall. Every step that Nehemiah took was against opposition. Outside opposition. Inside opposition. So that tells me that just because you on the inside don't mean you on the inside. Did y'all catch what I said? No, y'all didn't catch what I said. Okay? He's given himself to the people. He's done what God would have him to do. Why in the world would Nehemiah come off the wall listening to the word of somebody that can't be trusted and God never told him to come off the wall? So in the midst of this, we see, why should he flee to the temple? When the completion of the wall is almost completely done. Nehemiah's enemies conspired together to threaten to raise up an army to stop the work. But guess what he did? In the midst of that, Nehemiah puts together a strategy. See, if you're a real leader, you're strategic. What did he do? He said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put an instrument of building in one hand and an instrument of war in the other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place people with trumpets in strategic places so that if the enemy shows up, now get this. This was just a threat. But sometimes when the enemy threatens you, you need a counter to the threat. You need to be able to tell the enemy, come right on up here because I can find you from any angle that you try to. See, that's the reason. Oh, y'all not ready for this. That's the reason why if you plan on doing something for the Lord, you better have some warriors. Minister, did you hear what I said? You better have some folk that know how to fight on their knees. You better have some people that can see the enemy coming 10 miles away instead of 2 feet away. Because if you get that close to me, there's a good chance you can hurt me. But if I can catch you while you on the way, I can rally the rest of the troops to offset what you call yourself going to do. And that's why so many people fail, is you ain't got no help. You haven't learned how to strategically plan for an attack. Every project the Lord gives me, I'm planning for the attack. Oh, y'all trying to act like everything the Lord gave me ain't came with an attack. Y'all trying to act like y'all ain't never heard Negroes behind my back talk about me. Even to this day. What he doing now? None of your doggone business. You take care of your house, I'll take care of this one. Y'all didn't catch what I said. So in the midst of this, we see this very clearly, okay? And that's when the enemy comes in. And then Nehemiah says, our God's going to fight for us. Man. Now, how did he get there from chapter 2? Because in chapter 2, they scared. Chapter 4, they're bold. I'm about ready to shout on that one. Y'all done missed that. Chapter 2, they like, oh God, what we gonna do? Chapter 4, they like, bring it on. The reason they saying bring it on is because the captain, Nehemiah, is saying, we ain't worried about nothing. Every single thing that I tell you God told me has come to pass. You who were rejected by the walls being torn down and rejected in spirit now have a new spirit. Now catch this. You just caught my spirit. Do I need to deal with that for a minute? Maybe the reason some of y'all are so depressed is because y'all done caught the wrong spirit. Maybe you're hanging around people that don't want to go nowhere, don't want to do nothing, and they've been out of shape with what little bit you think you're doing. You need to be around some people who can catch the right spirit. Before it was the spirit of depression. Before it was the spirit of oppression. And all of a sudden, 2 chapters later, when Nehemiah's work before the people and anointed by the Holy Ghost becomes evident because now they're rebuilding the wall, they done caught Nehemiah's spirit. And when you catch a real leader's spirit, nothing can be impossible. Y'all just died off, didn't y'all? Y'all just died. Y'all just died. Y'all just died. I can't even get an amen out of that. That's the reason why there's some folk I will not hang around, I will not associate with. That's even pastors. There's some places I will not go and not participate in because I don't want that spirit on me. And some y'all sit back there like, oh, I'm not. No, you ain't. No, you ain't as strong as you think you are. Because if you hang around the wrong thing long enough, wrong becomes right. I got to hang around some people that's going somewhere, that have been some places I'm yet to go. Because how in the world do you think you're going to get something new doing the same thing? That horse been dead, and you still beating it like it's going to get up. Bury the doggone horse and go find you a new one and ride on. I cannot be around depressive people who are down and out all the time that don't want to go nowhere. When threats of attack came at Nehemiah, he put together a strategy. The strategy was to make sure that every leader was prepared for warfare. Every leader in the midst of what they were doing was prepared to fight. And then Nehemiah, when the enemies continued to mess with him, he persevered. Here's how y'all ready to know how he persevered? He persevered because he said, I'm doing a great work. Now, I know some folk will take that as one of the most arrogant statements that could ever be made. I'm doing a great work. Yes, I am. Y'all didn't catch that. I'm doing a great work and I refuse to come down. Y'all didn't catch. See, if you ain't doing nothing, you ain't got no place else to go. But when you're doing a great work and you got somebody telling you, you need to stop, the first thing you ought to tell them, I'm doing a great work and I ain't coming down and I don't care what you say. Matter of fact, watch my dust. Softly and tenderly. Are y'all still woke? Y'all still woke? Okay. So he says, I'm doing a great work. And guess what? This is a powerful statement. It's a powerful statement. I will not stop and consult with the enemy. You didn't hear what I said. I will not stop and consult with the enemy. If all you've done is hate on me, I'm waiting on a witness. Somebody need to talk to me or you're going to start making me think some of y'all guilty. If all you have ever done is fight leadership, when I talk about leadership, I ain't talking about just me, I'm talking about your leaders. Why would I stop what I'm doing to listen to you? You got to remember something. You know, when people do crazy things, you be like, okay, that's my greatest word. Okay. Because I'm going to sleep tonight. Y'all ain't catch. I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm not going to sit up here and wonder and do all that other stuff. I'm going to sleep tonight. Okay. Why should the work cease while I come down and talk to you? Wait a minute, catch this. While I come down and talk to you. I'm up here doing what God will have me to do, and you want me to come down to your level and talk to you. If you want to talk to me that bad, come on up on the wall. I wish I had somebody. I wish I had somebody that caught what I said. If you ain't on the wall with me, Nehemiah said, I'm not wasting my time with you. Okay? And so this is the thing that you got to recognize and understand. The funny thing about it was, again, that this man pretended to be sick and did all of this stuff and turned around and told Nehemiah, okay, you need to come down off the wall because you know, let's go to the house of God, go to the temple, close the door of the temple, because they're gonna kill you. They're gonna kill you. And Nehemiah responded to this concern by letting it be known, should such a man as I run? King James Version says, should such a man as I flee? I know somebody saying, well, my God, if I don't have confidence, if Nehemiah had no confidence in what he was doing, he would have listened to somebody who was a spy in the camp. He says, should I? Should such a man as I flee? Who is there that being such as I will go into the temple to save my life? I will not go in. Oh, y'all not catching this. I am not going to run from my enemy. Yeah, yeah. And that takes me to number 5. He feared nobody. If God is on your side, there is not one human being you should be afraid of. Y'all can't handle it. The key is, if God is on your, now if God ain't on your side, you need to be scared because you have absolutely no protection whatsoever. Nehemiah let it be known in no uncertain terms, because of the man that I am, because of the work that has been preordained for me to accomplish, you actually think I'm going to run to church and hide? God didn't call me to go into the building. He called me to get on the wall and build. And not only am I building walls, but I'm building lives. Ah, I wish I had somebody that caught what I just said. See, the work you do is not for you to receive the credit or the praise. The work you do is that God is glorified, that He saw enough in you to give you the assignment. Oh, I'm ready to shout on that one right there. He didn't wait for you to become perfect. He didn't wait for you to stop doing this or wait for you to stop doing that. He didn't wait for, He assigned you even when you didn't have a dime to accomplish it. Y'all got lost right there. If He's assigned you, why in the world should you be afraid of your assignment? Had a situation that happened here the other day, and a guy came to the church. I was I was here by myself, and the guy came, and you know I sat there and I'm watching him in the monitors, and I was like, he'll quit knocking in a minute, you know, because he don't look like me. He'll quit knocking in a minute, and so he kept knocking. He kept knocking, and I said, okay, he'll quit knocking in a minute. He kept knocking, and then I said, I really ain't got time for him right now. He kept knocking, and then I saw him walking away from the door, and I noticed the limp, and I to the door. I said, sir, how can I help you? And he could barely walk back up. And I said, he said, I need prayer. And so I said, come on in, have a seat. He said, I'm living in a tent. He kept knocking. He said, I'm living in a tent and I really don't have anything to keep me warm tonight. So I go in my bathroom and, and I'm to the point now that I don't give away the stuff I don't want no more. I give away the stuff I want to keep. So I gave, and I better not hear nothing from no Pittsburgh folk when I say this, okay? Because I will cut you. Come on with it. See, see, Daryl need deliverance, and so I gave him my Browns hoodie. Gave it to him. Gave it to him. Then, because he's living in the tent, I gave him my Ohio State hoodie. I love that hoodie. He said, well, do you have some water? I'm like, sure, do that. I had prayer with him. And he says, can you do me a favor? I said, how can I help? He said, um, can you give me a ride to the rescue mission? He said, because I can't walk back there. I'm looking at it. He has multiple sclerosis. Is that what it is? And so I said, okay. And so you should have seen him trying to get into the car. And I took him down to the rescue mission. He said, you don't know how much I appreciate what you just did for me. This is the person that I didn't want to help. Kind of like that woman when she went to the judge, and the judge said, just get out of here. And she kept on saying, no, no, I ain't going nowhere. And he said, okay, you done worked my last nerve. What do you want? Now, I know I ain't going to never see him again. No, no. I know where I'll see him again. But I'm telling you, I don't know if I'll ever see him again. But here's what I'm saying. You got to get to the point that you embrace your assignment, even when the recipients might not be the people you want to be assigned to. Y'all can't handle that kind of teaching. Because see, that's the stuff when I was naked. You ain't clothed me when I was hungry, you ain't give me nothing to eat. See that's the kind of ministry this is. Okay. This ain't being important in the building. This is being relevant outside of the building and providing for people outside of the building. And again, I watched him in the monitors. And I said to myself, he'll stop. Rick, I said, he'll stop. No, he didn't. His perseverance got some of my best stuff. Now let me tell you about me and my stuff. It ain't keeping nothing warm in that bathroom. I wish I had a witness here. I got at least 8 or 9 of them. You hear me, Sabrina? It's sitting in the little closet in my bathroom, and it ain't keeping nobody warm. Now, I want to get an attitude because I'm giving up the good stuff. Can't be afraid of nobody. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying. You can't be afraid of anybody. It was. He sure did. Oh, oh, I'm gonna give you the rest of the story. She brought it up. I'm gonna give it to you. He went to the other church. Now I ain't talking about the tab where they are of his hue. You can't come in here. And they had, and he asked for just a little something to eat. So you got to read lips. And I said, you got to have boldness in your assignment. Oh, they heard me anyway. I'm sorry. I didn't think they heard me, but they heard me. Um, oh, Katrina talking about speak up. I'm trying to get you to get, we are in the real last days. And we've been talking about the last days for centuries, but we in the real last days. And what we've got to learn and what we've got to grasp, his relationship with the Lord through prayer gave him the freedom to want to please God and not people. Because when you please God, you're going to tick off people. Woe unto you when all men speak well of you. Did y'all catch that? He was not afraid of any foe, outside or inside. Y'all can't handle that. What we have to understand, Nehemiah did not think of the temple of worship to escape from danger. So often we think of when we get into difficulties, excuse me, when we get into difficulties, uh, we go into the comfort of prayer. That's not authentic prayer. Prayer gives us the fearlessness to stay in the battle. You don't know how many times I told the Lord, you know what, I'm through. When I say I'm through, I ain't talking about y'all. Well, maybe a couple of times. But I was like, I'm tired of this. I don't feel like being bothered with this no more. People getting on my nerves, trying to do the right thing, and the more I try to do right, the more I get hated. Now, some of y'all might not ever been there because to whom much is given, much is required. I wish I had somebody. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? And the higher God elevates you, the bigger target you become. And so, in the midst of all that you try to do, after a while, when you don't see no results, when you don't see no lives change, when you see more people turn against you than for you, you sit back some nights and go, you know what? You can give this assignment to somebody else. And guess what God does? Because he's so unfair. He's so unfair. What he'll do is in the midst of the moment when you done said the heck with it all, God shows up with something that just makes you mad because now you can't do what you said you was going to do. You ever been there? I quit. I'm not speaking your name no more. And you sit there and you get to meditating over the goodness of God and all the things that he's done for you. And then he gives you a revelation of what's yet to come. It's just like fire. You turn around and say, you know what, Lord, just give me another chance. I know I said I wasn't going to do it. I know I said that I quit. I know I said I done had enough. But it's like fire shut up in your bones. I have wanted to give up on this city so many times it ain't even funny. And the Lord won't let me. Everywhere I go, I can't get one positive thing about this place. Ain't the mob in control? Ain't y'all dying? Yes and yes. But where sin abounds, I wish I had some Bible readers. And as many times as I said to myself, put this in the hands of somebody else who throws it back at me. And some of the greatest haters look like me. And when you turn around and say, that's it. God said, it ain't until I say so. And then he'll supercharge your behind at night. You'll have one of those things with God. And when you wake up, you get into the word and the word gets in you. Y'all not ready. Prayer gives us the fearlessness to stay in the battle. Prayer is the most powerful form of energy that can ever be generated. And I'm talking about prayer. I ain't talking about lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I ain't talking about that kind of stuff. That's stuff that you did on your mama's knee. I'm talking about talking to God. I'm talking about having a powerful talk with God, and God talks back to you. God gets in the midst of that situation, gets in the midst of you, and tells you it ain't over till I say it's over. Nehemiah's prayer life was so strong until it motivated him past his enemies, motivated past those that said no, and the mission was accomplished. The influence of prayer on the human mind and body gets into the glands of the person, and what happens is it increases physical buoyancy, which means I look like I'm getting ready to sink, and I just keep. Look like I'm about ready to capsize, and I just keep bouncing. Next thing you know, you bounce into victory. You bounce into overcoming. You bounce into breakthrough. That's what prayer did for Nehemiah, and it can do it for us when we're tempted to give up. In prayer, we give in to the flow of the Lord's power. We do not give up to the desire to be safe. Prayer is not a retreat from danger. It is the secret source of courage to finish. Did y'all catch that? I don't care what the vision is. I don't care what the assignment is. If he started it with you, he's going to end it with you. Y'all can't handle that, can y'all? You want to act like, out on the football field. And what you want. Boy, sit down. You want to act like you can hand it off to somebody else. Next thing you know, it's a flea flicker. They done flopped it back at you. If he's begun it, he will complete it. And you can't afford to be afraid. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same place at the same time. If you know you have an assignment and God has clearly given it to you, you need to accomplish it. Age has nothing to do with it. Education has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that Nehemiah finished his task to the glory of God. Because remember, everything you do is for his glory. That's as far as I'm going for tonight. I want you to keep Martin Walker in prayer. Had a procedure done the other day, came through pretty good, and we're grateful to God for that. Um, what's her name have her procedure today? When is her procedure? It was yesterday? Okay. Um, we just need to continue to keep June Snipes in prayer. Um, keep I can't think of her name. They're having the memorial service here. Yeah, Charlotte. On Friday. Please don't have conniptions. They're using the building. I'm not going into any detail about anything. Pastor Donaldson will be doing the eulogy. And so we want you to keep that family in prayer. And there's one other. The guy that used to be over the 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 thing with the kids with the Bible quiz. Yeah, he passed. His funeral is tomorrow. Okay. Keep Louise Adams in prayer. The grandson's is Saturday because at Elizabeth, calling hours 10 to 11, funeral at 11. June Snipes' brother, calling hours are 9, 8:30 to 10. Funeral starts at 10. Yeah, so I'll be bouncing around between all of those. Just need to everything. There's a season. Thank you for your prayers and me burying my great nephew. That was my sister's grandson. But in the midst of it, 7 came to Christ. So I was excited about that, of which one of them was my nephew. So I'm grateful to God. Come on, let's stand and have a word of prayer. I want you to please be careful in going back. It's raining like crazy out there. Yeah, you can go ahead and cut it. I done said enough for one night. Bless the Lord.